So I'm really delighted to welcome Katherine Lord. And Katherine, over
Brilliant.
to you.
Okay, thank you. So once again, as I said, I'm Katherine Lord. I'm a client director here at Frank Recruitment Group, a global cloud tech recruitment firm. And I'm going to talk to you tonight around how to stand out in the tech job market. So we'll go into my first slide. I'll probably spend about 15-20 minutes just going through the slides, and then we'll perhaps have a Q&A because people may have specific questions that they want me to answer. And it might make it a little bit more relevant. I'm very happy for it to be kind of an open forum so that we can all help each other. So how to stand out in the tech recruitment market. So if you go on to the next slide, Miriam.
Okay. It's just taking a little bit of time to change. Okay, there we go. Can you see this?
Right,
Next slide?
yeah, that's
Oh,
great. Thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah. So I will run through the top 10 sort of standout ideas to start with. And then I'll talk around kind of social media presence and then some kind of more kind of soft skills and top tips, I suppose. So top 10 sort of standout ideas for me. And I suppose number one, I would say, is gaining relevant certifications or, in some people's case, qualifications. So, our clients are always looking for specific qualifications linked to people's tech stack experience. So I would say as a number one, that's probably like a key kind of extra kind of attribute that you need. So building a strong online presence. When I say strong online presence, I mean, building up your kind of perhaps your LinkedIn profile and your social media profile. And that's something that we'll probably be going through a little bit more in the presentation. Gaining broader practical experience. That's not always an easy one to do, especially if you don't have your first kind of job, but there are ways that you can kind of get mentored or get some practical experience. That shouldn't just be voluntary experience, but I think that actually sometimes when you get a mentor, they can sometimes, offer you some sort of work experience in that route. Networking in your chosen kind of tech space. I found that a lot of the hiring I did over the last 12 months was in the Salesforce ecosystem, for example, and networking across that ecosystem. People are really engaging and happy to help. And I think that's a really key way of kind of getting yourself out there and being given more kind of opportunities, really. Showcasing your achievements. I know when you go to one of the women in tech kind of user groups, actually, they always do at the beginning the shout outs and you showcase your achievements of what you've done over the last kind of month or 2 months. And I think that's great. Another thing that I think is brilliant is when people, post sort of what they've achieved on LinkedIn or they would perhaps send out a recommendation so that it's on your LinkedIn profile, because we really should be talking about our achievements. And I think sometimes females in general probably shout about it less than sometimes our male colleagues. So continually updating your skills. Obviously, a lot of you are probably training in a specific area at the moment anyway, but we really want to make sure that if there is a new product that's being launched, that we are actually kind of absolutely getting ourselves around that and updating our skills where possible. What we don't want to do is become kind of dated, I suppose. Tailoring your resume and cover letter to the jobs that you're applying to or the firm that you're applying to. And that's something that I'll go through in a little bit more detail on the next sort of slide. So that's one that we'll cover in, a bit more kind of broadly. Be prepared for interviews. I think it's pretty straightforward, that, but actually it's all about making sure that we've done our research, we know about the company, we've looked up the interviewers if we know who's interviewing, and we've got a little bit of detail behind the job, etc. We should have been given a job spec anyway, but what is difficult is when candidates go into interview quite blindly. The success rate will increase so much more if you're well prepared. And then one that I think number 9 is developing soft skills. So soft skills, I would say, in the current market are probably as important in some ways as technical ability. I think that especially in a lot of the roundtables that I run to gain feedback from kind of women across the kind of tech communities, I often find that they use their sort of soft skills as their superpowers. So developing them more, whether that's their kind of work ethic or their empathy or their team kind of work experience, I think is a fantastic way to get ahead in this type of market. And then number 10 is considering sort of specialized roles. What's your niche? What's your kind of, I suppose, vertical or sector that you're going to focus on, and how can you become a real specialist in your field. So, and then the second part of this slide talks more around social media. Now, I think LinkedIn has become absolutely enormous for people's job search. 10 years ago, it was very different when looking for a job. And although specialist agencies like ourselves can always help people with experience, because our clients pay us a fee to find relevant people, it's sometimes quite difficult to place people that don't have experience because of the fee that we charge. Actually, some of the apprentice programs work slightly differently, and they can give real opportunity to move into a specific tech space. But I think 122 million members bag themselves kind of roles, and 35.5 million were offered through a connection they knew on LinkedIn over the last 12 months. So it's absolutely enormous job market in itself, and a lot of roles are advertised on LinkedIn. But I think what we really need to be doing is also kind of looking around what you can do to add value to your kind of profile, etc. So the first thing that I would do on your social media is make sure your profile looks both professional but kind of suits you and gives you, I suppose, a really nice flow of what you are and how professional you are and what you have to offer, etc. I think it's also really great to kind of put some really nice sort of perhaps strap line on what your kind of main experience is. For example, I've got a strap line which says around developing clients across the UK, Ireland and Europe, because that is my main focus within the brand recruitment group. And so I think it's really great to have all of those sort of details on there, so that if people are doing searches, they can actually find you quite easily. Also contact details, so that people don't have to just send you a LinkedIn message. They might be able to give you a quick call as well. I think that if you've got any job or work experience, make sure all of the titles and experience is on there, because when people are doing searches on LinkedIn, they'll often search by a job title. So it's great to make sure that you've got all of that detail on there. Endorsements and recommendations, it's a little bit like I was saying earlier. The recommendations, for me, I have candidates and clients who will recommend me, and people that are looking to kind of use me or use our services often look on there. And actually, if you were to have any work experience, it may be useful for someone to put a recommendation, a little bit like if they wrote a kind of referral or a reference for you. So really powerful in your job search. And I think if you're looking to look for a job using LinkedIn, make sure that you're writing a post probably daily, every other day, little and often, so that you gain kind of traction and your content is also, I suppose, perhaps picked up by potential employers. And I think it really helps with becoming part of a kind of community, really. If you join different kind of community groups on LinkedIn, sometimes they share your profile, and if people comment on your LinkedIn, your content will then get further using the kind of algorithms. So it's a really good opportunity to sell yourself, and you really need to see it as if it's like a CV or a cover sheet. There are some firms that don't even ask for CVs anymore. They will look at people's LinkedIn profiles. So absolutely, it should be something that you work on like you would a CV, to be honest. So moving on to the next slide. Thanks, Mary. So tailoring your resume. What's really key, I think, is if you're applying to a job, make sure that your cover sheet is tailored to that job. I was on a podcast recently and they were talking about how an eye-catching cover sheet can really help the process of you gaining an interview. And I think what you do need to be careful of is making sure that it's really succinct. It might give your kind of 5 unique selling points on it. You might tailor it to the job spec or the company, but what you don't want it to do is be too long, because you want it to be snappy so people really kind of focus in on it and read all the detail in it. On your I suppose cover sheet and resume, you need to make sure that you have, I suppose, 5 key things on it. Your location, because I think that's really useful, especially if roles are not remote or hybrid. Your salary expectation, because I think sometimes people will look at resumes and benchmark opportunities on kind of salary expectations. Your availability to interview and to start, I think, is a really useful thing to have in a covering letter. If you're immediately available, people may consider you for contract work, and you might be able to sort of trial in a role before they actually offer you a permanent opportunity. So giving that availability will really help promote you for those types of roles. The more flexible you are for interview, the better as well. I find that especially if you're meant to be meeting more than one interviewer, it can be sometimes difficult to get interviewers together, and actually saving them time can really benefit. So, and then I suppose the other 2 areas are perhaps a little bit more kind of self-explanatory in respect. You put your experience and you put your qualifications and your kind of recent employment on there. I think one of the key things is for it to be really easy to read. You have to remember that some people that read CVs, especially in talent or HR before it goes to line managers, will literally read hundreds a day. And so therefore, you just want to be making sure that it's kind of as succinct as possible and really sells your expertise. Sorry about my cold, so I'm sorry I sound so stuffly, but so the top 3 most in-demand soft skills for tech roles. So these are 3 areas that I've really honed in on because I believe that they're really popular within, in particular, the Salesforce ecosystem, which I've covered the most over the last sort of 12 months, but also across the board. And our Jefferson Frank brand covers all of kind of the coding territory for tech. So actually, that was something that was still kind of really important and key sort of soft skills. So firstly, it's communication. You need to be able to communicate effectively. You need to be able to take feedback. You need to be able to communicate with your peers, but also your subordinates as well as people above you. So I would say, yes, it's good to communicate using email or other forms of communication, but what you really need to be able to do is put your point across quite, sort of, I suppose, carefully and kind of in a very rounded way, just so that people understand exactly where you're coming from. So I would say communication skills are really key. Problem solving. There's always some kind of problem that comes up in every single project. And I think being able to work through that, being able to talk about that as a team and then come up with solutions without panicking is really key to some of the soft skills that's needed in tech environments in today's age. So yeah, I would definitely put that as a key kind of soft skill that's required. And then finally, project management, whether that's even managing your own time or if you're actually working, as in more of a project management type role, even within in the tech world, I think it's really key that you need to be good with kind of time management, your organisation skills, and you can really get ahead by making sure that everything is really mapped out effectively. And I actually think females are particularly good at those type of soft skills, probably because quite often we're juggling a lot backstage. So it's great for us to be able to showcase that in kind of interviews and also even in your CVs. If you don't have lots of experience, then do put that on your CV as well. And then on to the next slide, Marion. She's under pressure.
Definitely pressed the button and it worked last time, so let's do it again.
Okay.
Let's try. Oh, there you go.
Oh,
It
you've
went.
gone twice now.
Yeah. Let's
Oh,
try
once.
again. There we go.
Okay, great. And then sort of final tips. I suppose what I would say as kind of final suggestions really. Also, always listen and sell yourself with confidence. I think one of the tips I've had, and it's something that actually someone said to me when I first joined my current firm, just go for it. And I think what people really mean by that is that sometimes females will often question themselves quite a lot. They might not put themselves forward to a new role if they haven't done over 70% of the job. And actually, what you really want to do is sell yourself with confidence, because you can absolutely often do the job, but you just need to get kind of in the door. And if you don't have that confidence to go for it, you'll never know. So don't say no, say yes. And then always look for a firm at the job that fits your core values. For me, one of my, I suppose, core values is around inclusivity, and it's one of our core values at Frank Recruitment Group. I love the idea of everybody being on a level playing field. I love the idea that over 30% of the board are female, and I have role models at the top. I love all of the culture and the initiatives that we're running at the moment to make our environments more inclusive. I like the policies and the procedures that we're kind of implementing to help that as well. So I suppose it's something that sets well with me and it sits well with my core values. And actually, I would want to go to a firm that mirrored that. So yeah, I think you need to kind of go to a firm where you feel really comfortable, and you'll know that when you interview, whether it's the people that you meet on the interview panel or whether it's actually, kind of your first 3 months in a role before you pass your probation period. I think you get a feel for a firm quite quickly. So so find somewhere that really suits you, and then don't dim your kind of light for others to feel more comfortable. I think lots of people have said this to me in the past. Sometimes if you're very, very successful, or you're kind of you put yourself forward, you can sometimes be seen as perhaps too bold or too bossy or too opinionated, but actually sometimes it's just because people are a threat, and it doesn't matter actually what gender you are or what minority group you are from, or what your background is, but you must put your best foot forward and actually don't change yourself to make others feel more comfortable in their scenarios, because often it's on them and not you. So that's my kind of final tip for tonight. Does anybody have any questions? Can I open it up to the kind of room?
There's some kind of like clapping. I think people are really agreeing with
Brilliant.
you. And
Okay.
yeah, I think yeah, so if anybody's got any questions, please put them in the chat, or feel free to just Yeah, actually, I think you may be able to unmute, but if not, just put it in the chat.
Do you want to take off the slides now so that I can see
Yeah,
people if
yeah,
they are
yeah,
on? Yeah,
yeah.
brilliant.
There you go.
Excellent.
Anybody?
So I
Anyone?
know there's some new messages, so I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
There's people. Marsha said some really great points that have really resonated, and Grace has asked, are there any tips for imposter syndrome?
Do you know what? I think that most females at some point get imposter syndrome, which is very unfortunate. I think it's something that I've probably had myself before. And I think, do you know, I think you get better at handling it the more times you go through a scenario. Even something like this, where there's lots of names looking back at me on the screen, I think probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, I would have felt really nervous of it. But I've done lots of them now, and it's given me a lot more confidence. So I think practice makes perfect, actually. And I think also, it's one thing where if you can find somebody that mentors you, I think they can really give you that extra bit of confidence so that imposter syndrome doesn't become such a big thing. And if you do feel like it's creeping up on you, you would probably have a toolkit to be able to both protect yourself but also come through it so that actually you can see it as a positive and you can step forward from it rather than it overwhelming you.
And yeah, that's great advice. And that idea of actually just taking little risks and so you're ready for the big one is really, really good. And I've had a question about how would you, it's a similar one, how would you work on building your confidence?
On building your confidence. Do you know what? I think you can build your confidence in so many different ways. Like lots of people will build their confidence outside work as much as they build their confidence inside work. So if I think to my two children who like are 9 and 11, a lot of their confidence building comes from scenarios such as like playing sport or working as part of a team to achieve something or doing some charity work. And I actually think that's a really good way of building your confidence because you're then handling situations that are sometimes competitive or out of your control, or you're working as part of a team with other people. So I would say that's a really good way of doing that. I'd also get yourself along to some of the networking groups, a little bit like this. I think it can really help your confidence by speaking to other people. They can give you examples of how they've handled situations, and it gives you kind of that boost of energy to really kind of go for it. I think it makes you feel much more optimistic. So that's how I want to try and build your confidence.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic advice. And another question from Elizabeth, thoughts on coding challenges and how do you prepare candidates for that?
I suppose it really depends on the opportunity, to be honest, and it's very much linked to the job spec and the firm. So we always do kind of, I would say, a 10 to 15 minute briefing on anything that's linked to kind of a job role. But it really depends on your experience. So it's very much on a case by case basis.
Yeah, and again, we always recommend, signing up for different websites that let you test and do tests as practice.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
actually, if you had a mentor, they would also be able to do kind of, test programs with you as well. So,
and also pair up with other people you meet here to just try things, set yourself little challenges and try to solve them. And
yeah.
then Sade's asked, do you have any tips on how to prepare for game-based gamification assessments like Arctic Shores? I've not heard of Arctic Shores before.
I think we might need to explain that one in a little bit more detail, etc. I'm not a massive technical person myself, I'm a recruitment expert. So, but if there's something specific that you really want advice on, then do drop me an email. I'm happy to take questions afterwards, and I can put you in touch with the person that is actually kind kind of recruiting specifically in that space.
Another question, please, can you talk around ATS and automated screening used by places like LinkedIn and large corporate HR?
Yeah, so a lot of your keywords are picked up on LinkedIn, from either your profile or from your CV, which is why you really need to add all of the detail into your kind of profile and resume. And I think that's why I mentioned, like, for example, the location. There's definitely a pre-screening that goes on, and it is difficult with large firms because quite often your CV doesn't even go to a hiring manager. It will go to a talent and kind of HR team. So get all of the detail in there. You can't kind of, I suppose, you can't cover every scenario, but I do think that you can really sell yourself, and use very, very keywords. If you've got specific coding experience, make sure all of those keywords are in your both your profile and your resume so that they're picked up. And don't worry too much if you get rejections. You will do to start with. We're not in the easiest recruitment market. Lots of people that are very experienced are getting rejected at the moment. And I think that there's lots of potential kind of for the markets to improve this year, and they already are. So it's one of the reasons that you probably need to kind of grow your network, because I think quite often people getting their first foot in the door into into a new kind of role, or they're returning to work and going and using a new skill set, I think they're more likely to get something through their network than they are actually at just to kind of applying online. So really hone in on your kind of networking kind of skills.
And any advice for online interviews?
Online interviews. Um, I would make sure, one of the things that I always think is make sure you test the tech and make sure everything works, effectively. Go online with a friend and test the tech if necessary. I would always make sure you've got some kind of background which looks professional. I've interviewed people where there's like closed areas up and everything's kind of up in the background, and you can very easily have like a backdrop put on. So I would definitely do that. I think, try and remember to still cover everything that you would cover and act as professionally as you would if you were kind of face to face as you are on screen. So I would definitely make sure that you kind of give gestures, mannerisms, make sure you smile. You want to still give an air of your personality even if you're online. And I think sometimes interviews can be a little bit quicker online, and it also gives the people ability and flexibility, at least they're not traveling to kind of interviews, and it gives them ability to do different times as well, maybe when children are in bed, etc., or later or earlier. But I would say treat it as an interview. Make sure you're still selling yourself. Sometimes when you're behind a screen, I think it's a protection and you forget that you're in an interview scenario.
Dominique has said, I have no experience in tech, only customer service background. I've been doing some self-learning and short courses on Python. How can I stand out from the applications to get an internship or apprenticeship? I see on LinkedIn, they often have over 100 applications.
Do you know what? I would probably work with trying to get recommendations on your LinkedIn. I would probably start to try and kind of approach clients directly to see if they will kind of mentor you. We definitely have a Mentor Me program where a CTOs mentor females in the industry, and actually getting yourself onto something like that would be absolutely fantastic. I do get it. It is not easy to stand out, but you just need one break. And often there are over 100 applications for every role, and that's even in a really good market. So it is competitive, and sometimes it is a numbers game. But make sure you've got your thick skin on and you're resilient. Keep going.
Yeah. Exactly, that's fantastic. And thanks to Grace, who suggested that actually building small projects and then being able to explain them in your interviews is a way to kind of show your skills and show your commitment to learning. Um,
Yeah.
so this one's from Dayan, who wants to ask about career changing. Any guidance on how to try and secure that first role other than tweaking CV and resume?
So the question was about moving into a different sector or a different role.
Yeah, I think probably moving from a different sector into tech and how to secure that first role.
Yeah, I think I'd still go with the networking groups. I believe in networking groups. I believe in getting out there. I think that is what's going to give you kind of an opportunity. I think where there are programs for people that kind of are returning to work as well as, kind of, I suppose, upskilling. And I would absolutely kind of hone in on the firms that focus on that. I'd also have a look at firms that have got a really strong ED&I program, so that they would probably often put on their websites about kind of reskilling or hiring people that are returning to work. A little bit like, for example, B&Q, they always hire retired people to work in their warehouses. I think the same can be for a lot of corporate firms within the tech space. So I would really do your research. It's quite time consuming, but actually I think that will get you ahead of the game.
Another good question from Samira. With soft skills, how in depth can I make it without writing too much? Kind of maybe it's also a question of how would you like people to show their soft
Do you
skills
know
to you?
what I like? I suppose it's similar to like competency-based interviews. I love a nice scenario. So a soft skill, and then when you've actually proved it and done it yourself. So I'll try and give an example. So when have you worked effectively as a team to kind of achieve a certain target or an outcome, I would put that specific scenario. I'd put exactly what you did in that scenario as well. It doesn't need to be long, it can be just like 2 or 3 sentences, but I'd put the skill and then what you did in a scenario to kind of prove that. That's how I would kind of work that one. There are no right and wrong answers though, and you can tailor it however you want it to be. But that's how I like it because it's nice and kind of easy to read.
Yeah, fantastic. And a question from Dominique. Where do you find a mentor? I don't know anyone in tech. I mean, that's one thing
That's
that's
something that
great about,
probably
yeah,
coding black females can
yeah,
help with.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's exactly. Join our
yeah.
community. Go onto the community Slack channel, and you can ask for mentors, but also kind of follow what people are saying or sharing, and then kind of ask questions. Is a good way to start building relationships. Even on LinkedIn, you can do that. That's great.
And when you go on to kind of when you train and you go on to kind of boot camps, etc., you do start to build a network as well, don't you? And it's amazing how much you can be intro to people via that route as well. So there's lots of people that are on LinkedIn even. Like I did a Women in Tech roundtable today. Somebody posted about it at one of the partners, and they offered their services to mentor right there, right then. So have a little look at it, search it on LinkedIn, kind of women networking, mentors, and it may even come up. So yeah, that's how I would do it. Oh, I can't hear you now, Mary, but I think you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Hello. Is asking, are there any other social media channels you'd recommend other than LinkedIn to help you stand out or build your online presence?
You know what? Sometimes people use kind of even like Facebook, Instagram, Xing, which is more on kind of European roles. Lots of people you know, there is talk that TikTok is going to become a lot bigger as a platform for looking for roles. I would say at the moment, make sure you don't have anything unprofessional on your other social media platforms, but the majority of kind of hiring still goes through LinkedIn. So I would say they're definitely dominant. But like, for example, I've heard of people Googling someone's name and looking on Facebook before the interview. So you just need to make sure that everything is professional. I know it's probably more of a personal site, but just making sure it's kind of covered and there's nothing too sinister on there.
Yeah, fantastic. And there's a question from Grace, which is asking, how would you suggest approaching recruiters and building a good relationship with them? And then she's also asked about a mentor, but we've kind of covered that now.
How you would kind of start to build rapport with a recruiter. I suppose, as I said earlier, it's really difficult for recruitment firms to place people that have no experience at all. In some ways, it's more kind of train and deployment brands that can actually help you because they're retraining you and then they're placing you. And I think that is a better route in. I think by all means, reach out to recruiters, keep in touch with recruiters, perhaps email them or ask them how they like to be kept in touch with. They may try and help you still, but they are less likely to be able to place you into your first role. They'll be able to help you once you've got more practical experience. So don't expect wonders from your recruiter before you've kind of got that experience. Oh, sorry, I've got a very bad cold.
Yeah.
But I'm soldiering through.
You
But then
are,
I
you're
do
doing
think
great.
they will definitely be able to
Yeah.
help you as you gain more experience. And you know, I always worked flexibly since I've had my children, and I always say to people, email me at any time. I will always email you back because I know that I can't always take calls, and I'm often in meetings, but ask them how they want to be communicated with as well and the regularity so that it's a benefit for both parties.
And Katherine, I just want to say thank you so much because that was so informative, and especially turning up on a Friday night in January with a big, horrible cold.
With a really bad
Thank
cold,
you.
I'm sorry, ladies. Yeah.
It's such a much appreciated. Thank you.
No
And
worries at all.
yeah, and also just in response to that last question, absolutely, we are here to support you through, and a range of our short courses are going to come up for people that have been maybe doing self-learning, and you can move on to some of our courses that will help you take that next step. So we've got introduction to web development, for example, and a range of other courses. So keep an eye out for those, and then we will also have some boot camps launching in March, that will be starting in March, and there's information about those. So just go to our website and check out what's possible there. But
Brilliant. It sounds like a
yeah,
fabulous community. I want to say thank you very much for having me
yeah,
tonight. And I will very happily give my email address or my LinkedIn profile so that, you know, anybody, if I can give a snippet of advice or I can connect with anybody's help, then yeah, happy to. And make sure when people are posting on LinkedIn that you're all liking each other so that you get your content seen by more people.
yeah, yeah. So there's a thank you, thank
Amazing.
you, thank you again. Really,
Okay.
Katherine, it's been brilliant. And
Okay.
yeah, so should we
Wishing you
leave
all the
it
best
there
of
for
luck.
now? And yeah, and all have a good weekend, and enjoy the rest of your Friday. Bye,
Amazing.
bye for
Thanks very
now.
much,
Thank you very
everyone.
much. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, much appreciated.